So, are we are we really that surprised that Farage is obviously anti-sanctioning of Russian oligarchs and essentially pro-Putin at this point? Are we really surprised by these comments? Absolutely not. This, if you've followed Farage's career in any way, shape, or form, you should fully well know that look, Farage has taken money from Russian oligarchs for years. Um, there have been calls very much recently for Farage to appear before a select committee to say, okay, we know you've taken money from Russians to fund not only UKIP, the Brexit party, but also your own Leave campaign that you had as well. Time you come clean about where you got all this money from and why they gave you all this money. You know, they're not giving this money to Nigel Farage out of the goodness of their own heart. They evidently want something for it, and that probably ultimately was, especially really push home the far right libertarian ideas of having, basically a capitalist free for all, which again we're seeing many of the Brexiteers want to push for. In a post-Brexit world, which they never even brought up, of course, at the referendum or even speak properly, openly, aboutly, even now. And of course, being outside the EU enables them to do that, essentially, as part of the reason why many of these Brexiteers are indeed far right free market libertarians. Like I say, they want absolutely zero government interaction in the market. But of course, this comes back to, of course, Nigel Farage and his, shall we say, very recent bizarre comments on GB News, or in this case, as it's being called now, KGB News. So let's go diving into this. But before we do that, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help support the channel that way. Of course, the YouTube memberships are open as well. So in we go to this. This comes from the London Economic, the title of Theo Pathalthis, I think that's how you say it, schools Nigel Farage over his comments about sanctioning Russian oligarchs. It is fair to say that the majority of people in the UK and beyond want the government to clamp down on oligarchs washing money through London. And after a delay, the government has finally moved on the billions, or on the billionaire Russians. One person who is particularly feeling the pinch at this Russian-Israeli billionaire Abramovich, who put Chelsea up for sale on the 2nd of March in the wake of Russia's continued invasion of Ukraine. On Thursday morning, of course, though the UK government sanctioned the Chelsea owner amid his ties to Vladimir Putin, something Abramovich has always strongly denied, to put any sale of the club in doubt, but a change of ownership could still occur. So who is sticking up for all these supremely wealthy people with links to Putin? Enter one Nigel Farage. He was on GB News spouting off as per usual, saying this: "Is it right to seize people's assets without any form of due process? And in return, will this really turn Russians against Vladimir Putin? I'm concerned about the way this is being done." And as we said before, if you've seen our coverage of George Galloway, this is exactly what these pro-Putin people are. They're not coming out of upright pro-Putin because that's too obvious. They've got to fence it as hard as they can. So this comes to obviously the comment from here saying, over on GB News, Nigel Farage is complaining about the Russian government sanctioning Russian oligarchs, saying, is it right to seize people's assets without any form of due process? And in return, will it really turn the Russians against Vladimir Putin? I'm concerned about the way this is being done. Not surprising. Nigel Farage had obviously previously blamed the EU and NATO for Russia's bloodthirsty invasion of Ukraine, and accused the West of poking the Russian bear with a stick. Again, Nigel Farage and what we've covered of George Galloway saying exactly the same thing, that somehow the EU and NATO have, again, in this bizarre logic of theirs, somehow forced Russia to invade Ukraine. Again, it doesn't make sense in the big scheme of things if you're Vladimir Putin and you do not want a stronger NATO or stronger EU to do these things, because his invasion has only strengthened NATO. Even for the first time in places like Finland and Sweden, where for the first time ever, a majority of people now want to join NATO. Whoopsie doopsie. And of course, this comes from a tweet from GB News saying, Nigel Farage saying that Greta Thunberg did more than anyone to make us dependent on Russia. What? Because we'll see if we can play this for you.
Well, there's a very big global rethink going on about energy, and in particular, energy independence. Germany and Italy waking up to the fact that they are totally dependent on Russia, and they're both going to start mining coal. Goodness gracious me, Greta Thunberg, she really must be crying and shouting at the moment. And yet, if you think about it, she did more than anybody to make us dependent upon Russia.
Again, that's so ridiculous. Greta Thunberg did no such thing, like no such thing at all. That's such a ridiculous thing to say. But again, Theo Papaltis did step in, saying, the utter nonsense aside, the Apprentice star Theo Papaltis put the Brexit-loving Farage in his place, saying, there's no due process in Russia, so let's put that one out the window and stop getting wound up about it, he said. The fact is, the government, which, as you know, I'm not a massive fan of, has very few weapons in their armory in regards to the situation, but one of them is sanctions. So again, some of the, should we say, reactions to this. Farage is what is wrong with the UK. Again, I couldn't agree more with you there. Yep, someone else says it's KGB news again. Yep, couldn't agree more there. Someone else saying, I'm enjoying how transparent Farage's agenda is nowadays. Supporting billionaires and millionaires might not be as popular as he expects. Again, that was always his act, though. Again, Farage, the man of the people act, was just that. It was an act. It always was. Someone else, the only minority Nigel Farage actually sticks up for is the 0.1%. Again, completely true there. Let's just send this more into Russia. It's very obvious that the countries he's more fond of. That's very true. So yeah, it's not a surprise, of course, Farage turned out to be essentially pro-Putin. We even shocked, and of course, there's photos of him with like the Russian ambassador, Russian oligarchs, so many of these people. Again, Farage, the man of the people, the man who would again go to pubs, but again, he wouldn't go to a pub properly. He'd say, go to the landlord and say, right, I'm buying out your pub for my event. Clear out all the regulars, and only people are allowed in with the ticket. That's pretty much what would happen. And again, of course, that's where you'd get obviously all these pictures of him drinking a pint, etc., etc. Yeah, are we shocked at this point that Nigel Farage is pro-Putin? No, of course you shouldn't be at all. If those of you out there are, you may be quite a committed Brexiteer just to think, my word, am I in shock? How could Farage do this? Again, it's not surprising at all, taking in all his comments and all his actions over the years, that this guy, of course, would turn out to be pro-Putin. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all